If you have spent any length of time in a protected area such as a national park, you've likely been counseled to stay on the trail, don't pick the flowers, and don't take anything from nature home with you. You can walk on the trail and look at nature, but you can't interact with it much beyond that. While I am grateful there are efforts being made to keep certain places as wild as possible, the prohibition of any real participation between humans and the natural world signals the message that we humans are not wild like the rest of the natural world, and that we have made too much of an impact on the planet. So we best just stick to the well-trodden dirt path and not stray from it. While I'm not necessarily advocating we turn our national parks into places where people can forage and take whatever they want, I do think these messages can sink deeply into our psyche at a subconscious level, and can cause another fissure dividing humans from nature. We receive the message that humans have done too much harm to the planet, and therefore we just shouldn't touch it anymore. Not in these very specific places anyway, while in others we can completely decimate it and continue to harm. I wonder where the balance is in this approach. Humans have always had an impact on the land, as different species are always affecting one another and changing the land. This is a part of the evolution of life. It's just that today our impact is much more obvious. And with that, we tend to emphasize the negative interactions between humans and the natural world. With that being said, humans generally have gone from having a reciprocal relationship with the land, participating in the ecosystem through hunting and gathering, and having an overall light footprint on the earth, to relying on industrial agriculture, a very intensive practice that exhausts the land, and visiting the wild only on occasion. Of course, I speak generally here, as there are people living today who are exceptions to this, but most of us find ourselves in a state where we simply acknowledge we are not wild, and we stay on the literal and proverbial dirt path that will only get us so far when it comes to healing humanity's relationship with nature, and addressing things like climate change and environmental degradation. I understand these kinds of conservation efforts to a degree, but I think they are a band-aid fix that will not truly heal the wound that has been inflicted upon our relationship with the natural world. Through no one's fault, might I add. We were born into a world where generally humans experience separation from nature. But one way we could start to turn that around is by learning how to engage in reciprocal conservation, by learning how to consciously participate in the natural world again. Reciprocal conservation invites the human being to participate in the local ecology and learn how to do so in a way that not only benefits the human being, but also the biodiversity that exists there. It invites us to step off the dirt path and do more than admire the beauty of nature. It invites us to learn about other life, be nourished from the land in more sustainable ways, and become more intimately aware of how much we depend on the natural world to live and breathe. It invites us to thoughtfully and consciously participate in meeting our basic daily needs. And it invites us to learn how to give back in a way that both expresses our thanks to the earth for providing for us and helps the local ecology continue to be healthy and balanced. It invites us to learn and know that our impact on the natural world can be positive. In this process, we do more than just conserve and protect our nature reserves and national parks. We help to protect the balance of life wherever we are. While we cannot and should not expect to revert every single place back to its former wildness, we can protect, reclaim, regenerate, and rewild wherever possible within the modern context or environment we find ourselves in. For example, we could plant native species in our yards, attracting local pollinators that are able to receive the food they need, and in turn help to grow the food we need. As Arthur Haynes explains in his TED Talk on reciprocal conservation, this type of conservation does require that we learn much more deeply about the plants and animals around us. It takes more effort to get to know the local flora and fauna than to simply leave it alone. But it is my hope that rather than viewing this process as a burden, that we can view it as an exciting opportunity to get to know this planet we inhabit a little bit better, and have us humans and other than human life benefit in the process. So when you step off that dirt path, do not fear your impact. Sure, tread thoughtfully amongst plant life, but leave those footprints behind with the intention of practicing reciprocal conservation. And your impact and my impact may be much more positive than we initially thought possible. You may be wondering at this point in the video, how can I engage in reciprocal conservation? This is a really good question, and it's something that I want to explore more in future videos. So if this is something that interests you, I hope that you will consider subscribing to my channel. I talk all about rewilding and deepening our connection to nature for the health of humanity and the planet as a whole. I do want to leave off with a few ideas of how we can engage in reciprocal conservation, though, and ask you to also leave your ideas in the comments below. My main idea surrounds food, because we all need to eat in this world. And so how can we feed ourselves in a way that's more sustainable? As I mentioned in the video, industrial agriculture is very taxing on the land, but practices that our ancestors used, such as hunting and foraging, were a lot more sustainable. And yes, there were instances where maybe we did wipe out entire species. That has been proposed as a theory, but as a general statement, I think that in times past, our footprint was a lot more light. And so I think a good place to start is learning how to forage and hunt. Now, you may be wondering, well, how is this really engaging in reciprocal conservation? I am taking from the earth still, and what am I really giving in return? I think that when it comes to learning these more sustainable ways of feeding ourselves, a lot of the time we are just expressing our thanks, our gratitude in return. And that's really where the reciprocity lies. Because at the end of the day, we are going to become, well, maybe not at the end of the day, but the end of our lives, at the end of our lives, we are also going to become food. And that can kind of be a harsh reality to accept and come to, but it is the reality. As we accept that we are a part of this circle of life, we can give thanks for the beings that give us life and recognize that we too will give other beings life in the future. And that's where the reciprocity exists. I really enjoy the writing of Robin Wall Kimmerer. She wrote the book Braiding Sweetgrass. And in the book, she talks about the honorable harvest. And the honorable harvest is about taking only what you need. It's asking for permission, being willing to accept no as an answer, and to take life with gratitude. And you might be wondering, well, how do I ask something for permission to, take its life or to pick a plant? I think a general rule of thumb is if something looks unhealthy, or maybe it's just one plant in the midst of many different others, perhaps it's not a good time to harvest that plant. And I think as we learn just like sustainable ways of foraging and hunting, that we learn when it's appropriate to take and when it's not appropriate. Now, not all of us may be in a position where we can learn to hunt and forage. I know for myself, I'm not at the stage where I can hunt quite yet. It's a lot more intense, I suppose, to start that. So I still rely on farming to have protein, and I do eat animals. I did go through a period where I tried a plant-based diet, and that just didn't work out for the long term for myself, but I do try my best to support regenerative alcohol. The mosquitoes are terrible out here right now. I do my best to support regenerative agriculture, and if you still buy your meat at the grocery store, I encourage you to at least do some research and see if there are local farms in your area that do practice regenerative agriculture, because it is better for the land, it sequesters carbon, it's a better option, I think. And so that could be one way that we can practice reciprocity, is just by supporting people who are practicing agriculture in such a way that it's promoting the health and happiness of the animals while they are alive, and it's promoting the health of the landscape as well. I've mentioned this in previous videos, but if it is possible, you can also purchase organic produce instead of conventionally sprayed produce. A couple more ideas that I'll leave off with. You can see if there's crown or public land surrounding where you live so that you can get off trail a bit more and interact with the plants and animals up close, and obviously be respectful of animals' space and everything like that. But, to be able to go off the beaten path a little bit and just really experience the land and get to know it on a deeper level in such a way that maybe you wouldn't be able to in a national park, for example. My last idea is to learn how to compost. We can take our food scraps, make compost out of it, and give nutrients back to the soil. This is something that I did when I lived in the city, and I currently don't anymore because I'm living where there are bears, and I just haven't found a good way to compost yet because it's currently a bear attractant. So if anyone has any tips on how to compost when you live somewhere with lots of wildlife, please let me know. Anyways, those are some of my ideas, but I would love to hear from you in the comments down below how you think that we can engage in the process of reciprocity with the earth and its inhabitants. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.